I'm going to start recording here. I realized I had the screen door open and all the bugs were coming in. So we have these little guys. I guess I could open it up, right? There's two different things we have here. We have some needles and we have some pins, and they do different things when you sew. And does anyone notice how the pins have a little round ball on the end? Does anyone notice that? Oh, here comes Liam. Good morning, Liam. So we're just unpacking our sewing stuff, Liam, okay? So the pins are different because pins, the little ones with the little round balls on the end, are for securing fabric together while we're sewing them. And the needles are for weaving thread in between typically two pieces of fabric. They have different jobs to do. And what we're going to do today is we're going to make a very small stuffy. And then you have plenty of fabric to design something on your own time when you have time. So what we're going to do, and you'll notice in your little bag, I put some buttons and some thread and a piece of chalk. And we're going to talk about what the chalk is for, actually, very quickly. So have that out and ready. Liam, that scares me. Oh my gosh, you're very silly today. Liam, what do you have going on today after class? Are you going to go do something fun outside? You can unmute yourself.
My friend is coming over.
Woohoo, you get a play date? How exciting is that?
Yeah, in a pool.
Oh, that sounds like lots of fun. Lots of fun. Oh, the stuffing, Liam. You've missed my stuffing, haven't you? I know, it almost could kill you. A long time ago, Liam and I went up into the barn of my studio and took all this fabric down, and then Liam had a major allergic reaction. Remember that, Liam? And I had to like drug you because it was so dusty. So my barn at my studio, oh my God, it was bad. Do you remember that, Liam?
Yes, I do.
Well, you know what's so sad is Stan made me clean out all my stuff out of the barn, and because we're turning it into a big usable space versus storage. So you made me take all my stuff out of there. Wasn't that mean?
Yeah.
So guess what? All my closets now at the studio are bulging. You can't even get into the pantry. It's a danger zone.
What?
It's bad. It's really bad. Okay, so anyways, kids, so what I want you to do is look at your fabric, and I want you to find a piece of felt, and that is different than the other fabric I gave you. There is some felt, and felt is the easiest thing to sew, okay? So the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to make a practice stuffy. That's what we're going to do now, and it's basically a little pillow. And so, yeah, everyone should have at least one piece of felt. Now, anytime you sew something, the thing that you're sewing when you're making a stuffy always has basically two pieces of fabric. So here's a pillow, and there's one piece of fabric on one side, and then look, there's a sewn seam, and there's another piece of fabric on the other side. So it has a front and a back. And what we're going to do is you could think about making a stuffy. You could think about an animal, or you could think about something imaginative. But for today's lesson, for what you're going to do with me, we're going to make it very, very simple. So what I want you to do is take your piece of felt, and I gave you a pretty big piece. So what I want you to do is I want you to get some scissors, and I want you to cut it in half, because it's way too big for making a small little stuffy.
Miss Helene, these buttons are beautiful.
Oh, I'm glad you like them. Did you like your little collection of things I gave you?
Yeah, the buttons are very beautiful. They're pretty colors.
Oh, good. So, all right, I'm just getting my other little camera in order. Sorry, I realized that I had a giant. So I'm going to take my fabric, and remember how I said it was a little too big because I wanted to give you plenty of it. So I'm going to cut it. I'm actually going to cut it, and so I have a piece that's even smaller than half. And felt is also really easy to cut. So we're going to cut it so we have a smaller piece. Now, I noticed something funny is that I have white chalk and white felt. So if I draw on the chalk in a second, is it going to show up? No, and you definitely won't see it. So I'm going to get something else to draw on the felt with. Be right back. I don't know what yet. Oh, there's a pen. Okay. Let's see if this will work. Okay. So you remember how I said your stuffy is going to have a front and a back? Okay. So what I want you to do is I'm going to have you fold that piece of felt that you cut in half. Okay. And now you have basically, this is going to be the front and the other side is going to be the back. Okay. And we could think about, I'm going to see if this will show up. Well, it always is good to open the pen, or you could make sure the pen works. Hold on a second. I have a very uncooperative pen. Oh yeah, it's not. Okay, let's see if this will work. So years and years ago, I found a pen. Okay, thanks, Liam. Years and years ago, when I've taught kids how to sew, there were a couple kids that made these little creations called pocket pals. Does anyone remember those at the studio that have been before? Maybe Jack. Oh, Jack might have disappeared. You remember that, Liam? And they're basically like little stuffies you could fit into your pocket. So you want to make something that's kind of small because you're learning how to do it. So you could think of your little pocket pal or your little stuffy being like a basic shape. And you want to draw your shape. We have a fold, remember, because we have the front and the back. And so I'm going to keep my shape pretty basic. Oh gosh, this pen's not going to work either. I'm not at my house, so I don't know where things are. I'm going to just draw it out anyways in chalk. Olivia, is there any way you could see if there's a Sharpie in that drawer? And I made my shape. I don't know if you can see it, but maybe you can see the gesture in my hand. It kind of looks like a... No Sharpies. Do you think a lobster pen might show up? I feel like the lobster pen will not. Oh, a pencil might work.
I was just looking for one of the old pocket pals.
Oh, you were looking for one? Maybe an old pencil will work. Let's see. Oh, the pencil.
But I'm pretty sure that my dog ate it, so.
Oh, dogs do that. All right. So here's my funny little shape of my critter. It kind of looks just like
Hi, Olivia.
Yeah, there's a We're going on a big adventure today. We are all the way down by Mount Desert Island. And there's a little gallery on Little Cranberry Island that shows my paintings. And we are going to go take the mail boat ferry out to the island to deliver my paintings today. Doesn't that sound like an adventure? Okay, so I have a shape drawn out. I have it so that the end of it meets the fold, okay? And I have the fabric is folded in half, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that shape out while the fabric is folded in half. So here's my fold. And again, when you go to cut, and you want to use your chalk for drawing that line, I usually cut just outside the line I made. And you might experience, because I didn't give you a pair of scissors, that sometimes scissors that you use at home for all kinds of things are just terrible for cutting out fabric. So at some point you could ask, if you really get into sewing, you could ask your parents to buy some scissors. They don't have to be fancy fabric scissors, just the rule is once they're used for fabric, if they start for being used for fabric, you should never go back to cutting paper and other strange things with it. Like I do, I'm pretty bad at that. So these are new scissors I bought. And I just bought these, I don't know where I got them, but I'll try not to ever use them for anything else. Okay, so I have my shape of my fabric, and now I could open it up. I have an inside, and I have a back. So I have a front and back. It almost looks like a little eye patch. Okay. So now we're going to do is, if I wanted to, I could sew some, if I wanted some eyeballs onto this, I could sew some buttons onto this right now. But sewing buttons on when we're first learning how to sew is probably a little too hard for right now if you're just learning how to sew. Good job, Liam. So what we want to do is just kind of get you used to doing this. Lucy, have you and Billy sewn before? Yeah, have you guys ever done some sewing? Yes. I can't imagine you have not sewn with your grandmother, right? Because she just made like 5,000 face masks or something crazy, right? Did you help her, Lucy? Hi, Jane. Okay, so now we're going to remember how we talked about the different pins and the different needles. Let's show you what the pins are for. So we're going to take a little pin out, and we're going to just make sure my little felt piece stays folded in half. And so this is a little tricky, okay? So I'm going to hold it right up to it. We put the pin in, so the pointy part disappears, and then we tip the pin, and then we have it come out. Let's do that again. You have a couple of them. We put the pin in, we tip the pin, and then we have it poke out. Now when I'm sewing my little shape, I can be sure that my fabric is not going to wobble on me. And say you were going to sew a dress, or, uh-oh, somebody went out and they came back in. I let them back in. Jack, where were you? Hi, Jack. Okay, so Jack, what we've done is we folded over a piece of felt. We drew a shape on it with our chalk. And then I just showed everyone how to put some pins in. Okay. Now, before we start to sew, I wanted to show you, I'm going to try to share a screen that has some information about some basic sewing techniques that really are more of a help to your parents or your grandparents that are helping you this morning. So let's see if I can manage to share screen without closing out. Now, where is, oh, there they are. Okay, beautiful. So let me share this image with you. Can everyone see that? So this is just talks you through some basic sewing techniques. I'm going to email this to your family. And what it does is it talks about how to thread a needle, making an ending knot, and sewing on a button. And then we're going to talk about a running stitch. And that's the basic stitch we're going to do, but also has some other stitches there too. So I will email these out to your parents after class today. And then if they want to help you and look at those and study them a little bit more. So this one is just talks about getting your needle ready. So I'm going to stop the share on that. And then I'm going to show you the other one. Hopefully I'm going to show you the other one. Okay. And this is the other one that talks about, and this is what we're going to be doing right today, is we're just going to do a running stitch. And we'll talk about what that is in a second. Okay, but I just want to make sure you knew that I have a couple of resources for you. All right, so here we are. We have our fabric. It has been folded in half. There are some pins holding it place. Now what we have to do is we have to get our needle ready. And I hope that I gave you 2 different kinds of needles. One was smaller than the other. Now, one thing that I struggle with now because I'm getting older is my eyesight for threading needles isn't as good as it used to be. That's for sure. So this can also be tricky for kids. So did anyone notice I just found most of those threads I gave you were new. They have a little spot, a notch in the spool where the thread connects. And then I just undid it, and now I'm just going to pull it out, and I want it to be a 1 arm's length. Now my arms are super long, so you might need to do 2 arms lengths, but I want you to watch me do this. Ready? I'm holding the spool like this. Jack, Liam, watch. And I'm going to pull it out so it's 1 arm's length. And I'm now going to cut my thread. Now, just as a tip to moms and dads who are helping you, it's always a good idea sometimes if you're going to sew with your kids is to get the needles ready before they start, because kids have a hard time kind of with the waiting process of waiting for you to do it. But I also, what I try to do is I try to get the kids to thread the needles, like put the thread in the hole, while I just knot them for them, because the knotting part is the hardest part. Kids can see the hole better than we can. All right, so I'm going to get a nice clean edge on my thread, I'm going to cut it. And then, this is very old school, but I'm going to lick it. Don't lick someone else's thread. That's kind of gross, especially these days. Okay.
Celine, these marshmallows that you gave us are awesome.
Oh my gosh, Liam, jeez. Hey, please go take a shower. Okay. I want you to do it soon. Do you hear what I'm talking about?
We can hear you.
That's good. Because Olympia's here and she needs to get moving. And there's gonna be a white ghost that's gonna walk by. Olympia, can you be a white ghost walk by? Oh, if you see a big white poofy cloud go by, it's a 14.
Oh my God!
Oh, watch out! There's a white cloud. Oh, she's gone. Wait, where is she? Look, there's a white.
Actually made her look like really like a ghost. It made her like be like glowing, and I was like, oh my God, it's actually a ghost.
Okay, so we have my needle and we have my thread. I have cut a nice clean edge. I've licked it, and now I'm going to put it through the hole. Now, when I was a kid, I learned a lot about my sewing, not from when I went to art school. I didn't do any sewing when I went to college and graduate school for art. I learned a lot of sewing from my mom and from some wonderful neighbors by the name of the McKenna family. I don't know them. Anybody know them here? And also I learned it from my extended family. And mostly it was the women in my family that taught me a lot about sewing. And so when I was young, I was really fortunate that people in my family hoarded fabric like I do. And when I went to go stay with them, they would set me up with some sewing projects, and I would make dresses and aprons, which is what I actually, in my house when I was a kid, my mom and the women in my family who did the cooking wore an apron when they were cooking, which is not very common these days. Does anybody know someone who wears an apron when they cook in the kitchen? No? Well, that was something that people did for many, many years. Okay, so once you put your thread into the needle, I want you to pull it all the way out so the 2 ends of the thread meet. So that means that your thread is doubled over. So let's see, my fingers are not behaving. My two ends are meeting, and then I'm going to pull the thread so it's what they say, taut. Okay, and so I have my two needles, they're meeting here, and now what I would like to do is put a knot on this end. Now, a lot of kids, for some reason, get this idea that we should knot up here onto the needle, by the head of the needle, but that would be bad because then when you pull the thread through the fabric, guess what's going to happen? It's going to get stuck right there. So we want the knot at the very end of our thread. Now, there's quite a few different ways to do that. I always make my knot at the end of my thread by using bunny ears. And let me show you my technique for that. So I make my bunny.
No pun intended.
Here's my bunny. Dented. Are you making fun of my crooked fingers, Liam?
No, I said, no, you said so. And I said, no pun intended.
That's right, no pun intended. All right, I gotta have a sip of coffee real quick. By the way, I just want to know, I hope everyone had a really fun week at our first ever class of Take and Make Camp. I hope it's been fun for you. I'm sorry it's been at 9 o'clock in the morning, but I thought it was good to get it done early in the day so you could do other things. Okay, so we have my end-to-end thread, and we're going to take our bunny, and the bunny is going to have a crazy mouth. Can you see the mouth? No, you cannot. Okay, here's my other end. And my thumb is the mouth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my thread. I'm going to wrap it around the bunny's ears. And then I'm going to pull, oh, I already dropped it. I'm going to wrap it around the bunny's ears. And then I'm going to pull the thread through the ears. So it goes like this, and then I'm going to pull it nice and snug. Now this is pretty tricky, so don't be too impatient with yourself if it doesn't work.
I'm having technical difficulties.
Okay.
I mean, not technical, I mean sewing difficulties.
It's a little tricky. Okay. And then sometimes if you can and you're able to, it's good to put a secondary knot right on top of the first knot so that we can make sure that when we go to sew and we pull things tight that, you know, we don't pull it right through the fabric.
I do like 20 knots.
20 knots? That's probably a little over the top.
Well, I can't get my knot to be big enough so it will not go through the knot hole.
So did anyone see I'm making my bunny again? My bunny grabbed, and now I'm going to pull my bunny through the hole and try to line up the knots again. And it's okay if they don't go in the same spot. Okay, so now I have about, you know, I have a fairly good amount of fabric that I could do my sewing. Now, everyone knows that on my shape, I can see my pencil. Now, as a general rule, oh, that's the coffee maker. You always sew fabric when it's inside out when you're gonna do a running stitch. And a running stitch means that one stitch is running behind the other, okay? So what we're gonna do is, my shape kind of looks like a cloud ghost. I'm gonna start sewing at an end, and I'm gonna sew all the way around. And then when I get to be close to the edge, when I've left a big section I haven't sewed, I'm going to stop and put a knot in it. Because we need that hole because we're gonna flip our little stuffy right side out and then stuff it, and then we're gonna sew it closed, okay? So we've got my fabric ready, I have my needle ready, and I think what I should do is give you guys a second to catch up to where I am, all right? This is when I just stare at you and I go refill my coffee. This is the benefit of just being in a house versus being at my studio. It's like I'm just chillaxed. While you and your parents have to do all of the work. All right, I'm gonna go refill my coffee. I'm gonna be right back and let you guys have another second to get organized.
Why are you British?
Why not?
Instead of some coffee, get some tea.
Oh no, never, Liam.
Oh, how dare you! I love tea.
Tea, but at nighttime.
Yeah, but I like caffeinated tea, so.
What? You should not be allowed to have caffeinated tea.
What? Black tea? English breakfast?
All right.
English breakfast?
English breakfast tea. That's very nice. It's black tea.
Yeah.
Liam, how's yours coming? Where are you? What stage are you in?
I'm still making the eyes.
Oh, you're putting eyes on. Oh, that's fabulous. Okay.
The button, see?
Yeah, so you guys could look at what Liam is doing. He cut a piece of fabric out and he's sewing the button on, and that's great. So you can approach it, that just reminds me, Liam, you can approach this any way you want.
Oh,
It
dang
is
it.
your
Like
that's all right. That's okay. Just give it a cut it and then put a knot in it and then don't cut it too tight, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hannah, how are you? You and your mom hanging in there?
She is not my mom. She's my babysitter.
That's your babysitter. Hi, babysitter. What's your babysitter's
Hello.
name?
Yeah, what's my name?
Avery.
Hi, Avery.
Hi, how are you?
Let me know if I can help. I don't know what I can do, but let me know, okay?
Thank you. Much appreciated.
All right.
Yeah, join the gang.
Yeah, there's all kinds of
Go
people.
ahead, Ben.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to show them what you've done so far?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, show me, honey. Oh my God, that's so
Mom.
cute. Let me see, it's so cute.
You did a good job.
Yeah, and Hannah, you could make, there's tons of fabric there for you to make more than one piece.
Mhm.
Chat,
Yeah.
is your mom doing it for you? Or is she doing her own?
No, we sort of undid some stitches and we're restarting. We had a little issue, so.
Yeah,
we're
that
really behind.
happens.
Stitches.
That
Yeah.
happens.
Stitches,
All right.
stitches.
So.
And how is the McKenna clan doing?
We gotta stitch this.
Hi, Cecily. I haven't even seen you today. Lucy, are you guys doing all right? You're good? Okay. Well, you've got your grandmother there. You've got to be
remember.
all sorted out.
And with the needle, you're gonna do it kind of close together.
Okay.
So
So I'm going to start to sew mine and talk a little bit about our running stitch situation.
nice big little stitches.
Now, the thing that's bad about this is, again, I grabbed a kit for myself and I realized, again, I grabbed a thread that's light in color and my fabric is light in color. That probably I should have thought of that before, but you can't see it when you're teaching. But just something to think about for kids that are just learning how to sew. If you can grab a thread that has high contrast, so black or dark purple or something would be good. So remember, what did I say about a running stitch, Liam? Do you remember what I said? One stitch was doing what?
One stitch was listening to Miss Helene, and the other one was not.
Those are better, even a little
That's
closer.
funny. No, that wasn't it, but I like that
They're
answer.
much
One stitch is running behind the other. So let me show you what I mean by that. Ooh. It's a little tricky because I've got the cord right on my wrist. You can't see. Okay. So we've got my needle. We've got my thread on the needle. I'm going to start at this end, and I'm going to sew all the way around. So one stitch
I would
runs
suggest
behind
if
the
you
other.
wanted to tighten up a little bit, it would be even more secure.
So I'm going to start my stitch in. It's hard to know how far in do we stitch. Okay, well, if when I put my thumb on the fabric, okay, and use my thumb as a measuring device, okay, we want to think about how big my thumb is, and we want to start my stitch in one thumb's width in. And my stitch basically is going to go under, over, under, over. So it's weaving. So I'm going in now. I pull the thread all the way until it gets to the knot and I stop it. Beep.
Do not go
Now,
past the knot.
keep my fabric down. If I keep flipping it like this, what happens is I start to do some crazy free-form sewing, and before you know it, my stitches are going all over the place. So we want to keep our stitch in one thumbs within. And now that I've gone under, now I'm going to come back out. And that stitch, you kind of have to kind of guess is not going to be a very long stitch. You want it to be, you know, like a quarter of a thumb
Sure, it goes all the way through.
long.
Time,
So here's a stitch that you can see.
The easiest way to do that is to pull it through from both sides.
Okay. Now, some people who get fancy, so I'm going to come back. I went under, now I'm going to come back up. Notice I'm keeping my fabric pointed the same direction so I don't do some crazy free-form stitching. And the other thing you can do if you're getting fancy is you could take your fabric, and this is like the little, in the handout, I'm going to email your parents, and you can bunch it up a little, and you could do a bunch of stitches together. So I could put my needle in, just put the head in
the back and the front.
and then flip the head like this, and then flip it down, and then flip it again. It's like I just made a little weave
That makes a nice tight stitch.
of the needle, and now I'm going to pull it through. So I actually did 3 stitches, and then pull that
Miss
through.
Levine,
Yes, honey.
I just found a really good sewing pun.
Yeah.
If you're freaking out over a sewing project, don't worry. What you're experiencing is called seamstressed. It's a quite common phenomenon among people who sew.
Oh my gosh, that's funny, Liam. That is very funny. Seamstressed. Wait, what was the word? Seamstressed? Like a seamstress?
Like seamstressed.
Yes, I get it. I get it. That's cute. I like it.
Let me sew and no one gets hurt.
No one gets hurt. Okay, so when you look at your felt and you've got some stitches and you want to keep going all the way around. So I'm going to speed sew, and that gives you guys some time. And I know that we're not going to get this done in our class today, but remember, this is just to get you started and to get you inspired with the rest of your summer. You might start some sewing. It's quite fun. During the time period that we've been sheltering in place, I had some fabric. Can you believe I had some fabric that I had been waiting to use for years, and I finally made it into some pillows at home. It just, you know, it took severe springtime and being stuck inside when the weather was kind of yucky and we weren't really going anywhere. I'm still not going, I mean, I'm still going to different places, but not very much. Liam, have you been going into downtown Hallowell at all?
No.
No, probably not. So now I'm going around the curve. Remember to keep your stitches not too big, and make sure that you always keep your fabric pointing down. Okay, now there is a chance that I could run out of thread, or you could run out of thread before my stopping point. You don't want that to happen. And if it does, it's okay. So I think I'm going to run out of thread, so I'll show you what you do. Or I might just use that as my stopping point. So I'm sewing back and forth. Sometimes I'm just doing one running stitch like I just did there. And other times I'm doing a few of them together in one go, which remember we put the needle in, the head of the needle in, then we tip it up.
Can you put that thread through the eye of that needle for me? And then we'll pull it through.
Now the other thing that is a nice tip is if you have a little bit of Elmer's glue, but not too much, you could actually glue on, or some fabric glue, You could glue on some details, and that's okay for a kid's first beginning sewing project. Okay, so I am about to run out of thread. The reason why I know this is I only have that little bit left, and then it's going to disappear. And I'm going to use this as my stopping point, just so that we can get to kind of finish something. At least you can see me sort of finish something in the next steps. So what I'm going to do now is I have just about a ½ inch left of my thread on my needle, and I'm going to cut as close as I can to where the needle is.
It's okay. Go on.
And I'm going to put my needle so I don't lose it, as I say at the studio, back in the tomato. Well, the tomato is a piece of paper, because you don't want to leave sewing needles and stuff around so no one gets stabbed. And now we need to put a knot there. Putting a knot there can be really hard to do, but if you have someone helping you, that's helpful. The other thing I do, if there's a real emergency, I put a little bit of fabric glue and let that dry and then put a knot there. There's a fabric glue called Sofro, I think, fabric glue made by Joanne or Joanne's Crafts or something, but actually a little bit of Elmer's glue with a little water in it will do the trick. So to make a knot, this is tricky. What you have to do is go cry and say, "Can someone do this for me?" No, you're not going to cry, but you could if you really want.
Yourself together.
I mean, you are your parents' problem. You could cry all you want. I'm just going to mute you, but no. I know, it's so frustrating. I wanted to have enough thread. No. All right, whatever. So what I do is I loop my thread, and if I find that I don't have enough thread to make a knot, I undo a stitch. That means I go back to the other stitch. I could use my scissors or my fingers, and I give myself a little more thread, and now I'm gonna make a loop, basically a tiny little bunny ear, and then I slide my thread, the head of my thread, back into my little loop and pull it snug. Now, I really would struggle to do this if I did not have my glasses on. It would be bad. That's how I discovered years ago that I was, that I needed some reading glasses. And it seems the closer I get to 50,
Miss Helene,
the stronger the glasses I
the
need.
weapon.
What was that?
The weapon.
Oh, you have one of those. How fancy is that, Liam? Liam, show that again. What is that for? Yeah, that's for if you need to cut some thread.
I'm doing stitches.
There. Okay, so I have a knot here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next step of my stuffy. I'm going to pull my pins out. I'm going to put the pins in my paper. I should have drawn a tomato there because the tomato is our where we keep our needles and our pins.
Netflix and Pop-Tarts. Netflix and Pop-Tarts. Netflix
and Pop-Tarts.
It's a song.
So here's my stuffy. I have sewn all the way around this edge. Does anybody know what the next step is for me? Jack, I bet you know. Before I put the stuffing in, what should I do?
No idea.
You, Jack and Liam, you two need to hang out together. You are the yin and the yang of the boys I know. So don't you think, Tandy, I think Jack and Liam could hang out together.
I agree.
You guys know, well, you should meet because your mom, Amy, of course, that's your mother's name, Liam, is a very nice human, and Tandy is a very nice human. So,
are you an alien?
What?
What, are you an alien?
Liam and Jack, have you guys done camp with me before?
Yeah, I've met Jack. He used to go to the same class after school.
Really?
Yeah.
You guys need to hang out because you literally are the yin and the yang. You balance each other out perfectly.
But there's two different sides.
Okay. Oh, I have to turn the screen for a minute. I'm going to face it this way because Olympia needs to go by. She doesn't have her ghost outfit. Okay, Olympia, thing is safe. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, guys, just back to Helene needs to focus again, is I need to turn my stuffy inside out, like your pillowcase was in the dryer, and before you put your pillow in, you have to put it inside out again. And how you do that is just you flip it, and if you make the hole really tiny, it's hard to do.
Do you want to stitch this part of after we stuff
Here
it?
we are, turning my fabric inside out.
If we snip this, we give
Well,
ourselves
right side out, actually.
we can tie a knot.
And if you have any little points on it, you can take a little pencil or a pen and just push them out.
Twist them around a regular knot.
Okay.
And then actually tie
And
it
now
in.
is the wonderful part where we add the stuffing.
We'll do it.
So it's basically like a little pocket, okay? All right, let's find some stuffing. Here's the stuffing. Turn this back. And
Okay, I'm gonna be right back. I need to use my sewing machine because I am doing awful.
oh, Liam, okay. That's right. So I'm gonna put the stuffing in. I want to make sure the stuffing gets into all the little crooks and crannies. I'm gonna add a little bit more. And you know you have the right amount of stuffing if you could close it without it feeling like it's gonna bust open. So let's see. I think that's a pretty good amount of stuffing. Let's see. I'm gonna push it closed, and that's pretty good. So what you're gonna do now is you're gonna put your stuffing in, make sure it gets all the nooks and crannies, and then you're going to pin it shut. So I'm gonna line it up beautifully, and I'm gonna pin it shut, and then I'm going to sew it closed. So this is like making the littlest pocket pal or little stuffy. And you can do this process with regular fabric, not felt. It's just that felt is the best fabric for people who are getting familiar with sewing, because it's easy to cut and you can see things. But then you can embellish your little critter, your little stuffy with some of that fabric, other pieces I gave you. Okay, so now we can see I put my pins in so my fabric will stay together, because now what I'm gonna do is get my needle ready and I'm going to sew it shut, okay? And then my basic stuffy is done, and then I can just do the embellishing part. So just a reminder to get my thread ready. I make it 1 arm's length. And if you have little short arms, you probably want 2 arms length. You don't want it too long. Okay, we're gonna cut that. I'm gonna line up end to end with my thread. And then I'm gonna get my bunny ears, and I'm gonna wrap it around and then pull the thread through a hole.
Just
Pushing the batting in there.
Oh my gosh, I forgot to do something. How funny is this? Guess what I'm missing? My needle. Clearly, I have not drank enough coffee today. So I'm gonna get the needle. I gotta put the needle on before I put a knot at the end, right? Otherwise, there's nothing to do with. All right, so here we are, putting my needle and thread. Oh, it went right in. Nope, and then it fell right out.
It's just a tiny bit.
Yeah, we'll fix it. That's not
It's easy
enough.
to fix.
Very good. Yes, it is. It's easy to fix. That's why I like the double running stitch. You do a running stitch this way, then you do
Okay, my needle is on.
in the
And
empty
I'm gonna line up the thread
Right.
end to end.
I'll show you more.
And then I'm gonna get my bunny ears.
Think.
I'm gonna grab my bunny with my little mouth, go around it, and then pull it through the hole. And remember, I wanna do it maybe twice. Sewing is a really nice thing to do if you get comfortable with it. It can be a nice meditative thing. You could put music on. If you have a project, you can make lots of different things. You can make yourself a skirt or a shirt or something to snuggle with. It's lots of fun. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to start sewing where I finished. And I could finish and I could keep sewing with a running stitch, or I could do a loop stitch. I think just for keeping things consistent, We're going to do a straight stitch. Now remember, these stitches are going to be seen. So you want to make them really beautiful. So when someone sees it, they're like, oh, what nice stitching you did. Okay, so here we are. The pin is a little close. Remember, we don't want to sew in. We want to sew in about 1/4 of the width of our thumb to give us an idea how far in, not too deep. And we go over and under, over and under. And we want to make sure we don't sew the pin in place. That would be bad. It'd be hard to get it out. So over and under. And this one I just did a trick where I put the head in of the needle part of the way, and then I tipped the needle, and then I had the head of it come back the other way. That's actually, it's easier to sew that way if you get some practice in. And I always want to be checking it to see if it's looking good. Did anyone notice I just pulled that pin out because it wasn't necessary anymore?
So, did you want to turn it inside out to stuff, or did you want to leave it like this to stuff? You know what I mean? Here, I'm going to cut off the extra fabric too, so it's not in the way.
Okay, so I'm going to keep on sewing it. I'm not that far from the end, but I want to sew it to the end and put a knot in it.
You want the stitches exposed all the way around?
Oopsies.
You want to put it inside out and do it?
Exposed.
Exposed. Okay. In that case, I don't think we need to just bring it, stitch it. Here, I'll get it to where you, oops, broke myself.
Okay, I'm still doing my little running stitch. I'm almost to the end. And then guess what I'm going to do at the end? I'm going to put in a knot. Just like I did before.
Yeah, well,
when you get to the end, you want to kind of squeeze the fabric.
Stuff before it gets too far in. So
you have a nice clean edge. Okay, there we are. Mine is all sewn up. I'm going to pull that other pin out.
Start to get shorter.
Paper. Okay, there we are. I'm going to put a knot in. That time I didn't actually cut the knot off this time. You don't always have to cut the, cut the needle off. I had plenty of extra, so I didn't feel like it was neat to do it. So I'm going to double knot it, and then I'm going to cut it fairly close to the knot, but not so close that it's going to unravel. So just a little touch of, there we are. Okay, so how is everyone doing? Liam, how's yours? Good. Okay, so other things that we could do now is you could think about how you might use the buttons. You could use the buttons to put a little face on your little buddy you made. You know, you could play with laying them out and see if you like it. You could take a piece of, oh, that's not staying in place, just balancing it, but I'll do it. You could play with things. So you could put some buttons down. You could get another piece of the fabric that I gave you, a scrap. I'm going to make these into little red lips. This is pretty cute. Are you ready for this? So you could put a little face on your little buddy, okay? And you could just experiment with cutting some fabric pieces out. I think mine is definitely a girl. And I am going to take some of that umbrella fabric that I might have given you, sort of Japanese looking. Well, it's not very Japanese, it's Americanized Japanese looking, but anyways, nevertheless. And maybe I want to put that, I don't know, maybe I could put that here. You could experiment with that, or maybe I cut that in half. And maybe she has, these are her ears. Her ears are more like fins. Now she's turning into a fish girl. So you have lots of things that you could do to experiment with designing your little buddy to be interesting and to make it yours. You can cut fabric. Now you don't have to sew these on. I'm not going to judge you if you don't. If you just use a spot of glue, that's fine with me. If this is like one of the first things you've sewn, it takes a while to become very sophisticated. So just experiment and see how it goes. See what you can do.
I don't. They're still discussing how to be comfortable being there short term.
Okay. We have a few minutes left of our class. So I'm going to be quiet and just let you sew, and then we'll just do a general check-in with everyone.
You're sewing. Let me go get some more thread, actually.
What? No. Do you want a banana?
No, I'm eating chicken right now.
Okay. Okay. How is everyone? Liam, you look like you're doing a fabulous job.
That's because I am.
Oh, good, good. So just as some general ideas, I'm gonna email out to your folks the information I have about sewing that I shared with you a few minutes ago. And I would encourage you to kind of play around with what you could do with your little stuffy. Cecily, your stuffy looks great. Does anybody want to show me up close what they're up to? Hold it up to the camera so I can see it.
This is mine.
Oh, that looks fun, Liam. I like it. It's like a little eyeball stuffy. Jack, can I see yours?
We're supposed to have two eyeballs, except
Ooh, nice. Nice work, Jack. Oh, nice work, Billy. That's amazing that you got that done in that time period. Oh, the eyeball is coming at me. Hannah, how's yours coming? Thumbs down. Hannah, have you ever sewn before?
And have you sewn before?
Yes.
You have? Do you know what?
She's doing a good job. It's
She
okay.
is? Oh my gosh. Hannah, you know what thing I'm learning about you, even over Zoom, is that you're a little hard on yourself. Do you know what? It takes a long time and a lot of practice to get better at things. So,
Yeah.
you know, be nice to yourself. It's okay.
You're good. Yeah, I can.
So it seems like everyone's doing all right. So just keep on going. I think you have enough information to finish your stuffies from me. I wanted to just remind you that those little clay pieces you made earlier this week, you could sew them. You could paint them. And I mentioned yesterday that with your paints that you did your Van Gogh moon painting earlier this week, you could use those paints. What I would suggest is that you paint whatever you made out of clay, one full coat of one color to start, so it primes the little pots. And then you could add your design work with all the other colors. Hey, look, there's a kid behind me. Oh, it's a big kid.
Yeah. This is Miss Helene.
Oh my gosh, that is hysterical. Hysterical.
Your hair's falling off.
It looks, oh, uh-oh. It looks just like me, Liam.
Yeah.
So I would say paint your pots and do another sewing project. Maybe, you know, you could take a break if you're like kind of like, ugh, don't want to do this right now. That's fine. Do it when you're in a better mood to do it. Or just come back to it when you've had a little space. So that's something to think about. And I hope that everyone's had a really good week. This was an experiment, this class. And I have found that I don't have to clean up after you. I really like that. But I'm wondering what you think and if you've had fun this week. So if you want to think about your answer and then have someone email me about how it went, that would be fine with me. And I hope that you continue to do some art stuff on your own, okay? All right, so I'm doing another session of Take and Make Camp in a couple of weeks, and it is designed for kids that are older than 10 or 9 or 10. So it will be different than this week, but not a whole lot different. I'll just have different expectations, okay? So in terms of, you can do things a little more complicated. All right. So I think I'm going to say goodbye. Is there any questions or comments from everyone?
Nope.
No.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're very welcome. McKenna crew, are you guys leaving soon? Are you going to be around? There's Lucy, Olympia. Lucy, here's Olympia. Wave, wave. Oh, she's silhouetted. All right, guys, I hope to see you soon. I hope that you'll join me for another camp, and maybe when my studio can reopen to having people in place physically, I hope to see you in the fall. I hope. We'll see what happens, okay? But take care of yourselves, take care of your family, and be nice to your lovely family, okay?
Miss Helene.
Yes, honey.
Can you hear this?
What is that? Oh my gosh, Liam, you are a goofball. Is that a singing card?
What?
Is that a singing card?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, what is it singing?
It's going.
Okay, it's a rock out card. All right, that's a good place to stop. All right, guys, have a great summer. Go do some fun things and be nice to yourselves. Take care. I will put this up to YouTube. Okay, bye-bye. Bye, Jack.
Bye.